Good morning.
Good morning.
Good
Hello.
morning. Hello. Is everyone warmed up? Because it is freezing in here. Okay, welcome to the Active Directory Roadmap session. As Guido already introduced us, we're Cliff and Linda and Cliff. I don't think we need to go through that. I'm a software engineer in the AD team, a real life software engineer. Is anyone surprised? We exist.
Yeah, you're surprised to see the AD dev team here today. Raise your hands. Awesome. Some of you wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you. Some of you wouldn't be surprised because you already saw the agenda. But yeah, we're very much here. We're very much alive, and we're very much working on AD every single day at Microsoft. So we're happy to be here. Really glad. Thank you for the invite, Mickey, Guido, everyone. It's an honor to be here. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, first, we're going to talk about today's Active Directory landscape. What does AD look like in 2025? Not just Server 2025, but in the year 2025. Then we're going to talk about what's new in 2025 and what's coming next. And then we're going to tell you how you can help and give us feedback. So first, I guess Alex kind of already asked this question, but how many of you have on-prem AD presence in your environments right now? Pretty much everyone. How many of you have at least 50 DCs in your environment? Raise your hands. Okay, keep them up, 100? 200? 400? All right, there's still a couple hands up with 400 DCs. So, and how many of you are cloud only? Just remind me. Nobody.
Oh.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. The heckling has started. Okay, so let's talk about today's landscape in AD. Let's talk about security trends. Let's talk about Patch Tuesday insights, issue evolution, how we look at security over the course of time as we progress, and then our priorities and some of our polling insights. So we'll start by talking about the history of Active Directory just a little bit. I'm sure I don't have to speak much to this slide in this room, but from its origins in the 80s and early 90s to Microsoft integrating with Exchange to our official launch in 2000 Server, it's been a long journey with Active Directory, 25 years. In fact, Linda started her journey with Active Directory right around that launch in 2000.
I was 10. How old?
Close enough anyway. She started around 2000. I started my AD journey around 2007. And then I joined Microsoft in 2014, 2015 timeframe, depending on who you ask officially. And that's right around when the idea of hybrid identity was born. And as we've seen over the last 10, 12 years or so, there's been an increased focus on security and then an increased investment on our part in Server 2025. So when we talk about Active Directory today, I can really sum it up with one statement, and we came up with this statement specifically to help deliver this message to anybody who needed to hear it. We as Microsoft are committed to keeping Active Directory protected and productive in modern enterprise environments by investing in security and supportability, while also supporting our customers' transition to cloud-based identity solutions. Pretty much covers it: security, supportability, cloud focus. Okay? That's right. You
Just
said it.
pinch myself quick to make sure.
No, AD is not. Well, I'll let you make that conclusion after this session. So when we talk about AD technologies, there's a ton of interconnected dependencies that AD relies upon. I'm sure most people in this room know this. It's not just the AD and the domain join and ADCS, ADFS, not just DC locator and management tools. It's auth, it's crypto, it's access control, it's other LSAS stuff, DFSR, DNS, all the acronyms you can think of. LDAP, right? Is a huge thing. SAM. This is a massive scope. Now, our team at Microsoft focuses on the things in light blue. That is what we own. However, we are partners with all of the other teams who are in purple, dark blue, and other purple. We partner with all of those teams every day to make a product that you all can still use in 2025. So hopefully that will help you understand a little bit of the complexity that we are dealing with on the back end, as well as the complexity of nested dependencies in general.
Right, so now let's have just a small look at the actual diversity of AD deployments out there. Did anyone here fill out the poll that I shared back in January? So you might, and did anyone read the results that I published afterwards? Because quite a few people asked for those. So I've got a couple of pies for you if anyone's getting hungry for lunch, of the kind of things that we got, the information that we got back, which was really insightful. For example, number of forests that people have out there. So in this particular pie, you can see that most people have like 2 to 5 forests, but there's also a good amount of people with more than 10 forests. And the other interesting piece of information is the number of DCs, for example. Again, majority of people seem to be kind of living with under 100 DCs, but there's also a good proportion of over 1,000 DCs. I mean, a few people in here had 400. So we can see like AD is 25 years old. It's really mature, and people's deployments out there are really diverse. So that's like some of the challenging things that we deal with as well day to day, is that we have to make it work no matter what across all these environments. And then a couple more pies. The other thing we asked people, we were interested about their cloud journey. So we asked, where is most of their workload? Now, you can see here that 54% of people still said that most of their workload is AD on-prem. And then there's still a good amount of people that said they're in the cloud, and I'm sure that's growing as well. So that already gives you an idea of what the runway length is for AD still, even though people are migrating to the cloud. And then the other question we asked was, how long until people think they're going to be like 50-50, half on-prem, half in the cloud? And you can see by the diversity of this pie, again, that 38% people thought it was less than 5 years. But then there's a massive amount of people that was 10 years, and some people actually said never as well, or over 20 years. So AD runway is still long, which is why, as Cliff's statement shows you, we must continue to support all our customers and keep them secure in the next many years. And then the final, if you're sick of pies, here's a bar chart. The final interesting
The bar
one,
after pie. That sounds like a great idea.
It's a pie, go to the bar. I love that, Cliff. So the other interesting piece of information was what was blocking people from migrating to the cloud. And the biggest one that came out, which is probably really obvious to all of you if you've got a hybrid environment, is the dependent apps. So AD is 25 years old, and people have written all kinds of things in this ecosystem. And it's really difficult to just uproot them and put them in the cloud. Most of the time, the developers have long gone and retired, maybe. And then a second big piece of that bar chart was the control. And I think the regulation and requirements is pretty much the same thing as well. Like, people feel like they have to meet certain regulations and they need to be on-prem. So those learnings were very interesting, and we shared them back as well. So now Cliff is going to tell you what keeps us busy nowadays, all day.
Yeah. So where does our work come from? You may think that when you put in a ticket or you submit an MSRC vulnerability, that may be the only thing we'd be focused on. But I want to show you the breadth of things that we do balance our priorities between every day. And some of this is going to be really obvious to you. Obviously, the first one, security vulnerabilities, is a no-brainer, right? That's our top priority, bar none, period, right? Security vulnerabilities and getting them fixed. Customer requests, obviously, bugs, DCR requests, things like that. Partner requests. So for every customer, we also have, an internal team that's asking us for things, whether it's Exchange Online or M365, whether it's Entra Identity, right? We have a lot of internal teams, Defender for that matter, that we partner with to get things done. So we process their requests in the same sort of way, right? We prioritize accordingly. Watson and telemetry bugs. So these are the automated systems that we have on the back end to collate information and then report on information like crashes and things like that. So we do get bugs auto-generated out of those systems when crashes are found in bulk or when things are going wrong. And that's a way we can get a signal before we release. Feedback Hub. This is another way for you to give us feedback. It's just the built-in Feedback Hub in the product. it is on me to get Active Directory added to that as a node, and we will be doing that at some point. But for now, you can file feedback on Feedback Hub, and it'll get routed to us without that signifier. And then the randomizer. It's the 4 o'clock crit sit. It's the Friday you thought you were going to go to your weekend. Well, just kidding. There's this burning ICM that you need to fix that's affecting, the whole world or part of the world. So that's part of where our work comes from. Now, given all that, we have to prioritize that somehow. So what are our priorities? I'm going to boil it down in 3 really easy things to understand. It's really more than this, but hey, just go with me. First thing is fixing security issues. That's, again, top priority, fixing security issues, protecting you from the rain of nails falling from the sky. Fixing customer issues, again, top priority. If you've got outages, we need to fix those. If we regressed something, we need to fix that. And then let's not create more issues when we fix things, right? This is a great attempt at touching up a painting that went horribly wrong. We don't want to do that. So let's talk by the numbers a little bit. We wanted to present some of the volume of work that we have as well. So when we talk about MSRC cases, these are vulnerabilities that are reported to us that make it through MSRC. How many of those do you think we've dealt with since 2024? Do you think it's 50?
Nah, they don't think it's
No. Okay, 100? Higher, 150? Everybody says keep going. All right, I'm just going to show you. It's 190 evaluated since 2024, and 180 of those have been fixed in at least one OS version. Now, when we talk about MSRC cases, that's a vulnerability, but that vulnerability affects every operating system that is vulnerable to that issue. So how many total security updates? That's per OS, right?
He's making you do maths now.
Making you do math, yep. How many do you think we've shipped since 2024, just security vulnerability updates? 1,217. Holy, I mean, you're blowing the bit for us, but here you go, 1,200 plus. Great job, yeah, that's a great guess. And then for our non-security work, how many bugs do you think we fixed? Non-security means not a vulnerability. It doesn't mean this doesn't affect security, right? It just means this was not reported as a vulnerability and went through the process and has a CVE, right? How many bugs do you think we've squished in the last year and a half? 6? 6. Okay.
Wow.
How many think it's 100? 200? How about 400? Over 400. And then DCRs, we've shipped 10 design changes as well across the last year and a half. So now we want to talk about the evolution of AD security over time, and Linda's going to go ahead and take this slide.
Yeah, so I'm going to take you on a little journey, as you can imagine. So when we think about how security vulnerabilities have changed for AD, which is how our work has changed as well. Back in the 2000s, we would have had just very simple null deref bugs, a small amount of them. And when we fix them, the impact is low. We typically, you don't have a lot of chance of breaking anything. But as time has gone on, the security has evolved and the bugs have evolved. They've become more complicated. There's become more of them. Especially in the recent years as well. You would think AD is very mature and we've fixed all of them, but they just keep coming. So we are still very busy keeping it secure. And then when you look at today in 2025, what we're really dealing with is really complicated design changes. Things that 20 years ago were features are now becoming vulnerabilities that we're having to change how they work. And those are very often highly impactful fixes. And sometimes they cause friction. So we have to ship them in like audit mode and let you guys have some time to deploy them. So to kind of illustrate that and share some of our learnings, just going to walk you through a little case study. Who's familiar with the domain join hardening in this room? I'm hoping a few of you.
Awesome. That's good.
So I'm going to use this as the case study. So back in 2022, the vulnerability got reported. We won't say exactly when, just to keep out of trouble. And this particular vulnerability was a feature that 20 years ago, when you joined a machine to the domain, if it found an account with the same name, it was just kind and said, oh, just reuse that account. You know, it's fine. And it didn't tell us or anything. And now it actually became a problem because people realized that the existing account has an owner and it has some permissions that might result in a security breach, for example. So we set about in trying to design a solution that made it secure in today's world without causing any trouble.
Yeah.
And as with all vulnerabilities, we sit down together, we investigate the problem, we work with the MSRC team, we come up with the rating together with them, and then we have to design and implement the solution. Cliff was our PM.
Yep.
On the case.
In fact, it was the first time that you and I had sat in a room together because you were in, it was the pandemic, you were in London, I had joined during the pandemic as well. And it was the first time we actually got to sit in a room together and whiteboard a solution to a problem. And it was nice. So we've done this online a bunch. But we sat about, going through 3 or 4 design iterations, figuring out how we wanted to attack this vulnerability and fix it.
I was the lucky developer that landed this on my desk.
Yes.
So yeah, we fixed the ship. We shipped a update in October 2022 that fixed this vulnerability by checking what we decided on the least invasive solution would be to check the permissions and decide if the owner is more privileged, and if they are, then it's fine for them to own the account. We also built in an emergency registry key, which some of you might know, because we had a hunch that some people may need it. And actually, this is something, we learned something from this that we want to share here as well. And soon after, we learned that actually pre-staging accounts and reusing accounts is apparently really popular still amongst customers. Even though we've got offline domain join and things like that, a lot of people are still using like old scripts that just work, right? So why change them if they worked? Or other ways of pre-staging.
Right. And the thing was, we even kind of maybe saw this problem in the distance, but we in part of our design process, we actually did polling, and we asked on social and things like that, hey, how are you doing domain join right now? If you guys followed me on Twitter, back when it was Twitter, I asked the question and got some really good response. And like 80% of people answered in a way that told us like, yeah, this should be just fine. Well, it turns out those 20% of you are doing this in a way that it really broke you, unfortunately, and that's not something to laugh about. But we found a good lesson about like, hey, you can ask all the really good questions all you want. When that thing lands is when you find out how impactful it really is.
Yeah, and so I sat back down and rehashed this and had to figure out another solution to accommodate those particular scenarios. So what we came up with was a group policy that allowed you to put in who you trust to be the account owners, like essentially an exception list. And we shipped that in an update, again in March. And if you might wonder, why did it take from November to March? Is because we actually sit down and we design and test and spend a long time making sure that things work properly. I like to compare it to like if you go to a restaurant and you order some food and it comes out in 2 minutes, you know it's fast food and it's probably going to give you a regression stomachache. So, our updates is not fast food, and we really do take our time. Sometimes we have to. So that one shipped in March. And I think it was about that time that we started to message that we're going to get rid of the registry key, because it was really just temporary, because we didn't hear any other issues. So we believed all was good.
And we do want you to be secure by default. So like part of the reason we would get rid of the key is to make sure that, hey, anyone who's relying on this needs to eventually get secure anyway.
Right. And then what happened was, when we started to say we're going to get rid of the registry key, people crawled out the woodwork and said, oh, but if I remove it, then I have this problem. And so this is one of the learnings. It's like we would like to share, is that if there is ever a problem, we'd love for you guys to report it so we can actually fix it, and we can do it as soon as possible. So it doesn't like drag out like this, but longer than it needs to. So we did have another issue reported in that, and we also fixed that one a couple of months later.
Yep, and moved the evaluation logic to the DC side, because that's something we realized at the time is actually the DC is a better place to do this logic. We didn't want to do it at the DC side at first. That's why we started the client side. Then we decided, okay, let's just move it to the DC so the KDC can do some of the heavy lifting for us.
Yeah, so sometimes that's another thing, like we might design a fix and we may have to like make some big adjustments to accommodate later on. So with this particular one, we had to do that. And then eventually by August 2024, we had wrapped everything up. Every customer we knew had deployed this fix, were able to set the policy and it was working. And we finally were able to get rid of the registry key. So I guess the moral of the story is we try to help avoid issues sometimes by providing a way to stop the fire if there is one, but we really would love to know as soon as possible if there is any issue.
Right. And so it also speaks to the bigger idea of releasing a feature versus servicing Windows. I'm just going to pop both of these on the screen so you can see them. When we release, a lot of times what we're doing now is we're releasing first to insiders. That way, a lot of the people in this room are insiders and MVPs, and we thank you so much for consuming our insider builds and reporting the problems you find as you find them and things. It's super helpful to us. But really, we're releasing to a crowd of enthusiasts when we do that. Enterprises aren't adopting server on day one, right? I mean, everyone in this room knows that. I don't think it's controversial to say. But when we release a patch, that thing's going to 1.5+ billion endpoints. It's like trying to sell something in Times Square on New Year's Eve. You better have it buttoned up, right? Not that you don't need it buttoned up when you release, but 1.5 billion users impacted instantly, that's a whole different scope of what you have to evaluate. So now we've talked about the history of AD and what we've been working on. Now we're going to talk about what we worked on for Server 2025, and then a little sneak peek at what we're thinking about for 2028 or vNext, Server vNext as well. So let's start down that road. Again, I'm going to come back to this point a few times, but our investment focus is security, cloud enablement, and supportability. Those are the three pillars, and we call them pillars of our development process and our development ideology. And they impact everything that we are evaluating. So we're first going to do a deep dive on the security focus. After all, you're all security folks mostly here. So we're going to do a deep dive on security focused AD features, and we want to show you that there's a lot that went into Server 2025. There's also a lot under development, and there's a lot of stuff coming as well.
So who here has got a 2025 domain controller? Couple of hands.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay.
Who's planning to have a 2025 domain controller?
A few more hands.
Okay. The rest of you not? Maybe we can... Right, so we're going to start with just kind of walking you through some of the security improvements we did in 2025. So these are the things you can have today if you don't have a 2025 DC, or if you do, maybe you didn't notice that this thing exists. So the first small improvement is related to machine account passwords. First of all, we have blocked the unsecure default machine account password. Some of you may know historically there's a way to create a machine account with the default password, and that default password is just the name of the machine. So this was like a pre-Windows 2000 thing. I hope no one's got NT4 domain controllers.
Does anyone have NT4? Please raise your hand. So, that's in your test lab, George. That's different.
And so the other thing that we got rid of, which is a small thing, but it will help administrators trip up less, click, if you may click, is we said goodbye to the pre-Windows 2000 computer box.
Yeah, remember this
time for that one. And the thing about this evil little box is if people don't know what they're doing and they check this box, they will get a computer account with the user account control that says it doesn't need a password. So that's, and this was designed for like WinNT4 compatibility. So that's gone. And in 2025, we've now got no box. Small, but hopefully helpful.
Yeah, there's no reason for anybody to check that box in modern environments. So
Yeah.
gone.
And the next thing that we've spent quite a lot of on LDAP security improvements. There is some new policies, and then if you just click a few times, they'll come up. So LDAP signing is enforced by default. Channel binding is set to when it's supported, and probably my favorite one is if you make an LDAP query for confidential attributes, we now won't give them back unless it's encrypted. And thank you.
Hey. Awesome.
LDAP client encryption is also preferred by default now. And I must say that this is work of our entire team that we're sharing right here. Another thing that we did, and this somewhat relates to some of the things Alex was saying this morning, is that for 20 years, it was possible for somebody to brute force the local administrator account because it couldn't be locked out. As of 2025, and is Windows 11, it's on this slide, local admin, built-in admin accounts can be locked out. There's also a policy that you can set to disable that if for some reason necessary. And the defaults are 10s for everything. Admin passwords also now required to be complex, which seems like a very kind of common sense thing to do.
Yep.
And it's now there. And this is all enabled by default on both workstations and servers. So it's protecting the local admin accounts on your, SQL servers, whatever else is out there as well.
And hopefully those accounts are managed by labs.
Which I think is next.
I think it is. And then we have the event IDs for the IDs for the account lockout policy.
Oh, no.
It's not next, it's DMSA. So let's talk about DMSA. I don't want to steal George's thunder. He's going to have a whole session about SAs and MSAs and stuff tomorrow. But we would talk a little bit about DMSA. This is a joint project with our enterprise and security team that we worked on, delegated managed service accounts. How many of you have service accounts? Just general service accounts?
Oh.
Yeah, sir. Okay. How many of you have upgraded to MSAs or GMSAs? Okay, a good chunk of the room.
Nice.
That's good. So DMSAs are the next evolution of managed service accounts. They are intended to seamlessly supersede existing service accounts. That's regular service accounts. They don't supersede GMSAs yet. But the idea is to seamlessly supersede the service account by providing a new account. The new account retains the permissions effectively because everything happens in the back end through LSA. So when you log on with that old account, or when the SQL server logs on with the old account, LSA goes, no, this has actually been deprecated. This account has been defuncted. Go use this identity instead, and it points you to the DMSA. So it seamlessly does it in the background. It's very simple deployment with PowerShell. If you're familiar with GMSA deployment, it's even easier, really. And the passwords are only accessible by the KDC to retrieve the keys for added security. There's also, as a result of all of the seamlessly superseding, right, there are no CRED or identity changes required on the service. When you set this up, you don't have to go to each of your 100 SQL servers and change the identity to a new identity and type in the complicated password that you created and all that stuff. Again, it all happens on the back end, so there's no real management that occurs once you set up the account. It all works. Now, we can't talk about DMSA without, unfortunately, talking about bad successor. So we had bad successor reported. It is fixed now. It is fixed in, that's the next part. It's fixed in August, as of August Patch Tuesday. We now validate both accounts that you can basically write to the preceded by link and the other link on the other side with the identity that you've used to run the PowerShell before we actually allow the modification of the account. So it's not just that you need perms on one, you need perms on both sides now. This also would be mitigated for customers who have enforced create child permission hardening. This also would have been mitigated because a lot of the create child permission hardening actually nixes some of the perms, the permissive perms that are given to creator owners and things. However, that's a DS heuristic setting, and a lot of you haven't rolled that out in your forest yet for various reasons, and understandably. So until then, we have fixed this. Again, released on Service 2025 in August. That's the only place it needed to be released because that's the only place DMSAs exist. So if you want DMSAs, Server 2025. And if you have questions about DMSA, we have a DL for you to email, dmsa@microsoft.com. It's very easy. It takes you to the product group for DMSA. There's various people from our team and the enterprise and security team there. Email us if you have input, feedback, problems, especially problems, right? But any of this stuff, let us know. We also did DC Locator improvements. So as you all know, DC Locator was a connectionless LDAP ping or a UDP ping that was blasted out to everyone, and whichever DC responded the fastest, generally you either got your information from or you set up your secure channel with. Now, admins, well, since we are trying to move NetBIOS out of the enterprise landscape, we have made it so that you can map NetBIOS names to fully qualified DNS names through a policy. And then DC Locator will use those instead of the NetBIOS names to actually find your DCs. Also, we got rid of mail slots, or it's mostly deprecated. We got rid of AD involvement in mail slots.
There's a link
that's
there
gone.
to
There's a link down at the bottom.
Yeah.
And here's the picture of the policy that we set up to set up this mapping. And that's what the mapping looks like. It's a tab in Domains and Trusts. You just set up your NetBIOS to FQDN and you're set.
So let's talk about another small nugget that people may or may not have noticed. We have a couple of new security groups in 2025 designed especially for external and forest trusts. So you may or may not know, but when you create a trust, it gets a primary group ID assigned to it. And right now that's always authenticated users. The primary group ID doesn't actually have any meaning. Nobody uses it, but it's there. And so just in case, or to improve things, we've created these two brand new groups. And now when you create the trust, they get their own unique primary ID. And that's mostly because then nothing else in your directory can have permissions for that. Whereas authenticated users is probably everywhere. So that kind of isolates those trusts. And the other part, the good thing is if you do have a 2025 DC, which some of you did, if you transfer the PDC FSMA role, you'll get this feature because the trust scanner will kick in and it will fix up your existing trusts as well. Next, and I think this is the last one, one of mine. How many of you are familiar with SID to name lookups? So you know Windows does this translation between names and SIDs, and then sometimes when you look up the name, it has to be forwarded to a domain controller.
Yeah, call it DNS for identity, kind of. Sort of.
And so this under the covers uses LSA RPC and a protocol called LSA Domain Policy Protocol. This LSA ROpen policy is the first step in the dance to do a SID lookup or get some other information from the LSA. And it has this out revision info parameter. Now I'm getting into stuff I love, which is code. And in here, it tucks in a supported features flag. You may or may not know this, but we use this for the server to communicate to the client what we support. And in 2025, we added a new flag in here to say that the server is now supporting using something other than the NetLogon SSP for translating of names and SIDs. You may or may not know NetLogon is very, very antique old thing that we tried to get rid of. So this was another step towards getting rid of NetLogon. And so a 2025 DC will now return this little flag to a client. And if you have a newer client, we can go to the next slide. It can now use Kerberos authentication to forward the SID to name lookups to the domain controller instead of using the NetLogon one. A few more clicks, I'm like, waiter. So imagine you were translating a name called Linda on Windows 11 24H2. Typically, it would use RPC over SMB and the NetLogon SSP. And now it can use Kerberos against the 2025 domain controller. And the way it does that is that we implemented a new LSA open policy with creds. So we can now actually create the binding handle and we can tell it which credentials we want to use. That wasn't possible before. So that now makes Kerberos possible there. And there's a link at the bottom to the protocol documentation if anyone wants to go and look at the geeky details.
Yeah. If you really want to nerd out about AD stuff, go read the protocol docs and, just geek out for a bit. So since we're going to talk about laps, we wanted to include a lap dog. This is our architect Jay's dog, and he is very much a lap dog. He's dancing in the snow in this one. But let's talk about laps for a minute. So as you all know, we pulled laps from being an out-of-band binary to being in the product. And it's in the product for all modern supported OSs. I think 2019 and up is where we went with that. Now, that we weren't done though. Laps is a great feature. We built a lot of stuff into it when we released it, but there were still more things that came in as some of you started rolling it out. You said, hey, it'd be really nice if. And Jay hears, it'd be really nice if, and he spends 30 hours on a weekend coding it and then comes in on Monday and it's like, hey, we have this prototype. So we were able to knock out a lot of these things and they're available in 2025 as well. First off, automatic account management. Enable, disable, rename, or randomize the local admin account. You can feed it a name and it'll randomize and put a bunch of numbers at the end of it to randomize it. And then you can re-randomize it every time you roll the password if you want to be that secure. We know this is a defense in depth thing, but it's still, a lot of you are renaming your admin accounts already. So this helps facilitate that process.
9 minutes.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm police. Time police.
We implemented passphrase support. How many of you are familiar with the old XKCD comic about entropy, password entropy, and yep, that's okay. Yep. So if you're familiar with that, you can now have your correct horse battery staple password, or it will randomly generate 3 to 5 word phrases that you can use for your passwords. Readability support. How many of you have put on your glasses and stared at the screen and said, damn it, is that a 0 or an O? Is that a Q without a serif? Is it an L, a 1, an I? If you turn on readability support, you don't have to worry about that. We get rid of those letters. They're not actually allowed to be used in a lapse generated password. Now, this doesn't reduce entropy as much as you think, and compared to the status quo, it's actually still very good entropy because we're only removing a handful of characters out of the mix. We also implemented image rollback protection to prevent torn password state. This was a big issue as people started to implement laps in their environments and then have to actually do things like recoveries, right? So we implemented rollback protection to prevent torn password state. And then password recovery, including DSRM passwords. How many of you have been in an environment where you're like, I need to get into DSRM mode, but I don't remember the password? This helps recover that as well. And then for the latest and greatest in the world of labs, Jay did a session at Microsoft Technical Takeoff. We're linking to that at the bottom as well for you to check that out. Now, let's talk about stuff we're currently working on.
The fun part. That's why I kept saying 9 minutes.
Yeah.
I've got 7 minutes.
Got to get to the good stuff. This is stuff you're all here for, right? We're talking about what we're doing in our partnerships with all those teams that we mentioned before, and then we'll talk about stuff that our team is working on. So first, we are working on forest recovery, cybersecurity, incident recovery improvements. I'm sure people in this room will be happy to hear that. We understand how much of a pain it is to recover. We understand that a lot of times if your DA accounts are compromised, that domain is toast in your opinion. And not opinion, it's good. It's a good practice. But a lot of companies are saying, hey, if we get compromised, it's toast. We migrate to a new forest, we start over, right? We're thinking in directions of how we can support that. We are doing support for various Defender features. You may have already noticed some logging getting implemented slowly. In event logging, we're helping with ETL tracing and things like that as well to help support Defender in their quest to protect your AD environments.
Yep.
Support for various auth and other OS security features. For example, if you've heard of local admin protection or admin lists, or I think it's local admin protection now, but we called it admin list for a long time. Our team helped work on that again with our enterprise and security team to help protect your local admins. Hybrid security support, obviously, as more people move to the cloud, there is security required, and some of those security things need to be implemented on-prem because that's where the Windows code is living, right? Now for Active Directory, we're working on, again, some LDAP auditing improvements. This falls into the supportability bucket, right? We want the product to be more supportable. We know that admins are getting older, so are we,
And
unfortunately.
they want to know who's using which apps, right?
Right.
Are using LDAP still on-prem, so
Exactly.
things like that.
Yep. LDAP security improvements. Again, that shouldn't be a surprise. Security improvements is what we're working on mainly. ADCS improvements. So if you've heard of Post Quantum Safe, that is a thing that our team, Enterprise and Security, again, crypto team, we've all been working heavily on getting, first you have to identify what the algorithms we're going to use, and then you have to implement them, then you got to test, and then you got to do the whole thing over and over, right? So we've been working on that. We're also considering Acme at some point. We're looking into how to integrate that. And
some nice nods.
Yeah.
I mean, we're being really vague here on purpose, because obviously we can't disclose too much detail or promise anything, but these are the these are the areas that you can expect to see improvements.
Exactly. And then DMSA improvements, there's plans to expand the scope of DMSA. I think adding GMSA support might be in that list as well. My understanding is that it was anyway. And then some other things that we're going to try to do with DMSA. And then we have to do the, legalese of, this is pre-release product, everything can change. We're Microsoft, you know how that goes, any one of you. Everything can change at any point. But this is what we're working on, and I see no reason that we won't be continuing to work on it. Now, what are we investigating? So we've been on a tour of getting top customer asks from the poll, from just feedback from you, customer engagements, going to Ignite and things like that. Coming here is a way that we're going to get some customer feedback, so that's awesome. Now, we are thinking of ways to do native AD backup and restore. Again, future thoughts, right? It's not even in the oven yet. Like, I'm still figuring out what the recipe is, right? But we want to figure out how to do AD backup and restore natively in some way to help facilitate that, instead of you having to go through a list of, well, I use this tool and this, and then I do that with this, and then maybe this third party comes in and this and that. We're thinking about ways to do that natively. MFA is a big deal for all of you. I know we are considering how to approach on-prem MFA. That is and that's a very complicated topic, right? So that's why we're just saying we're thinking about it. We want to look into it, and we know you all need it. More, exactly.
Yeah.
More is great, exactly. AD management and tools improvements. That's one of the biggest feedbacks we hear is, hey, like, DSA.MSC is great and all, but when are we going to get like an Azure Blade looking management system? So we're thinking along those lines as well. And then, of course, one of our pillars is improved cloud migration. So we're working on improved cloud migration scenarios to facilitate your movement into hybrid, where you'll probably stay for a while until you can get rid of all that on-prem stuff and move directly into the cloud. If you have an ask, we have an DL for you. adfeedback@microsoft.com. Please email us. It's me, it's my manager, it's my other PM, it's her, it's other people from other teams. It's not a black hole. I assure you, I know you've probably emailed it and not gotten a response at some point, but we are working on how we're going to take that feedback and actually use it for good. Now let's real quick go through some AD changes you can enable, because we're starting to run out of time.
I will rattle through those really quick. So I want to go back to the create child permission. This is my dog Rex. He likes to show his teeth now and then. Basically, beware of the create child permission, and if possible, well, not just if possible, please deploy the permissions update and enable it if you can. I mean, Bad Successor was just a case of it. Who knows what else is out there? So let's be protected. Let's enable this one. Strong cert mapping is another one. I'm sure people here are aware of that, that we would love people to enable. Third is a nice one. These are my two dogs, Buzz and Marley, waiting for some treats in their football shirts, watching England. So enable the newest DFL, FFL to get all the goodies. And then there's stuff we also would like you to disable and get rid of, because it's old, and then also because it's not great for security. So the machine account quota has been around forever. It is still 10, unfortunately. But if you all stop using it, we can actually get rid of it. And I recently documented the necessary permissions that people need for domain join. So please look at that. Steve says you got to get rid of NTLM.
Steve.
If you know Steve. And together with that goes external trusts because they use NTLM. So if you have external trusts, think about, can you go to Forest Trusts or
Right.
Steve,
It's not a fully supported way though.
fine
So
for that. Yeah.
let's-
So by
let's-
default, it's NTLM.
right. The point of this is let's talk if you're using external trust
Right.
and we'll figure out why you're blocked
AD
and then how to get you. Yeah.
at Microsoft.com, please, if you have external trusts.
ADC has a template.
Yeah. We're at 0, but
RC4
RC4 is the latest and the hottest thing that we are looking at getting rid of.
Yes.
And that's Steve's dogs again. There we go.
Okay. So how can you help? And the key takeaway. First of all, I'm going to come back to this slide. Your key takeaway should be that we are committed to supporting AD and keeping everyone protected and productive in this room and outside by investing in security, supportability, and cloud-based identity solutions. Now, how can you engage us? We've already let you know, adfeedback@microsoft.com, Feedback Hub, or you can file support, and then, maybe do all three of these things and you'll reach us faster, right? But we really want to hear from you and engage with you. So let us know your feedback, and that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
And we're very grateful to be here. Thank you very much.
Yes. Oh,
Amazing.
and
Yes.
don't forget that tomorrow we, along with Jared and Shannon, will be on a panel with Alex.
Yep.
And you can submit questions to that panel via the Cvent app or the HIP Conference app. There's a live Q&A tab in the event itself or in the session itself. You can go pre-ask questions for that panel.
We would
Please
love
do
it
that.
if you could do that, because then we can see which questions are like more popular and we can make sure we spend some time on those.
Right.
So go into the session in the app, scroll down, and there's a open question thing.
It's a perfect lead way to basically make sure that you get your questions not only asked, but also answered. And that's going to be then in the panel, because we're running out of time in this session right now, because you need a little break. We'll have a continuation at, at 12 with a session on fortifying hybrid identity management. In this room, we've got advanced cybersecurity resilience in the Live Oak room. And the actual customer track is starting at 12, unlike the slide showed at 11 in the Fenwick room. So find your right room. Thanks again, Linda and Cliff. Amazing session. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting us.